The storm rolled over the plains like a living thing, snarling and flashing its teeth across the night sky. The wind tore at the grass and rattled the old fence posts as Eli McGraw leaned low over his horse, trying to see through the rain that fell in thick, slanting sheets. He'd gone out at dusk to check the herd after hearing coyotes nearby, but now it was well past midnight and the world was a blur of mud, thunder, and water. His horse whinnied nervously, hooves slipping in the muck. Eli muttered something soft to calm it when, through the curtain of rain, he spotted movement along the ridge. At first, he thought it was an animal, maybe one of his strays, but then lightning split the sky, revealing the shape of a person stumbling along the fence line. "Hey!" he shouted, spurring the horse forward. The figure turned sharply, eyes wide and wild even from a distance. When Eli drew closer, he saw she was a woman, drenched, barefoot, her hair plastered to her face. She was clutching something to her chest, her whole body trembling from the cold. "Ma'am, you'll die out here," Eli called, swinging down from his horse. "Come on, I'll get you out of this storm." For a moment she didn't move, her eyes darting to the darkness behind her as if expecting someone, or something, to appear. Then she whispered, "I just need to wait it out. Please, don't trouble yourself." He frowned, taking a cautious step forward. "Ain't no one surviving out here tonight without shelter. My place is a mile south. You can warm up, get dry, then move on in the morning." Her lips trembled, and her grip on the small bundle in her arms tightened. Finally, she nodded once, barely. Eli helped her onto the horse, feeling how light she was, how her fingers shook when they touched his. The ride back was slow. The wind howled so loud they couldn't hear the hooves striking the ground. Eli could feel her shivering behind him, could sense her fear wasn't just from the cold. When they finally reached the cabin, he jumped down and guided her inside, slamming the door against the wind's fury. The small one-room cabin filled quickly with the crackle of the fire he started. She stood near the door, dripping water onto the floorboards, watching him like a cornered animal. He pulled a blanket from the cot and held it out. "Here," he said, his voice gentler now. "You're safe. Sit by the fire." After a long hesitation, she stepped closer and took the blanket. Her hands were small and pale against the coarse fabric. She sat near the flames, curling the blanket tight around herself, but her eyes never stopped scanning the room, as if memorizing the exits. Eli poured 2 tin cups of coffee from the pot he kept on the stove, handed one to her. "You got a name?" Her lips parted, but she hesitated again before answering. "Clara," she said softly. "Just Clara," he nodded, sitting opposite her. "Well, Clara, I'm Eli McGraw. And you're lucky I came along when I did." At that, something flickered across her face, fear, maybe guilt. She stared into the fire for a long time, silent. Then, almost to herself, she murmured, "You shouldn't have stopped for me." Eli's brow furrowed. "Why's that?" Her eyes lifted to his, glimmering with something close to sorrow. "Because if they find me, they'll find you too." The storm raged louder outside, thunder rolling like a warning across the empty plains. Eli's hand instinctively drifted toward the rifle hanging by the door. Whatever he'd brought into his home that night wasn't just a lost traveler. There was a secret in her eyes, and a danger following close behind. The wind hadn't let up by dawn. It slammed against the cabin walls and whistled through the cracks like a ghost that couldn't rest. Eli had barely slept. He sat at the table, elbows resting on his knees, eyes on the woman by the fire. Clara was wrapped in his blanket, her face pale in the flickering light. Her clothes, now drying by the hearth, were fine and delicate, not made for travel or storm. She looked completely out of place in his rugged world. He cleared his throat. "Coffee's hot. You should drink before you faint again." She took the tin cup with both hands, nodding slightly. The way she avoided his eyes made him uneasy. There was something heavy in the air, something unspoken pressing between them. "You're not from around here," he said finally. "Not dressed like that." Her lips trembled faintly, but she said nothing. Eli leaned forward, his voice steady. "If someone's after you, I need to know. My ranch ain't a place for trouble." For a long time, she didn't respond. Then she set the cup down and stared into the fire as though gathering courage. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you," she said softly. "Try me," he replied. Her fingers went to the silver chain around her neck. Eli hadn't noticed it before, tarnished, small, but with a delicate engraving along the edge. She hesitated before unclasping it. Her hands shook as she held the locket out toward him. "This is all I have left," she whispered. "It's why they're chasing me." Eli took it carefully. The metal was cold against his rough fingers. He flipped it open, expecting a picture, maybe of a husband or a child, but instead found a tightly folded piece of paper. Frowning, he unfolded it. His breath caught. Across the page, stamped with an official seal, were words that made his stomach twist. Wanted dead or alive, Elijah McGraw. For a long moment, the only sound was the storm outside. Eli stared, reading the false accusations: robbery, murder, treason. Each word hit him like a hammer blow. "What kind of game is this?" he said finally, his voice low and dangerous. Clara's eyes filled with tears. "It's not a game, it's the truth, just not the way you think." He rose slowly, the paper crumpling in his fist. "How do you have this? Who gave it to you?" She swallowed hard. "My husband. He was the marshal who signed those warrants. Before he died, he told me the truth, said you were framed, Eli. That the men running the governor's office wanted your land, your cattle routes. When he tried to expose them, they killed him." Eli froze. His mind reeled, memory flashing back to the day he'd lost everything, his friends turning away, his reputation shattered overnight. Now the missing pieces clicked together, sharp and cruel. Clara's voice broke the silence. "Before he died, he told me to find you. To give you proof." He looked at her, eyes narrowing. "Then why are you running?" "Because the men who murdered him found out. They think I have more. Records, letters, names. They'll stop at nothing." She pressed a trembling hand against her chest. "They're coming for me, Eli. And when they do, they'll come for you too." For a long time, Eli said nothing. The firelight danced across his face, casting hard shadows beneath his eyes. Then, slowly, he set the paper down and took a deep breath. "You should have told me sooner," he said, his voice quieter now. "I was afraid," she whispered. "You had every reason to hate me." Eli stepped closer until the space between them disappeared. "I don't hate you, Clara. I just wish I'd known before the storm rolled in." She looked up at him, eyes shimmering. "You're going to send me away, aren't you?" He shook his head. "Not a chance." Outside, thunder cracked once more, echoing over the plains. Eli moved to the window, scanning the distant horizon where dark figures might already be riding through the rain. Then he turned back to her, his voice steady, resolute. "They framed me once," he said. "But I'll be damned if they touch you." Clara's lips parted, a quiet breath escaping as if she couldn't believe him. But when Eli loaded his rifle and set it on the table, she saw something in his eyes that made her heart ache. Determination, yes, but also something gentler. Gratitude, because the woman he'd saved that night had just given him his life back. And as the storm howled outside, they both knew the fight wasn't over, it was only beginning.